For me, I think leaving the game and being involved in the game, the short answer is it's taught me everything. I think, how to live in a locker room, how to be a brother, how to be a father, how to be a teammate, how to be, have somebody's back, all of the things that kind of come with that. But first and foremost, you learn how to handle adversity and you learn how to be a good teammate through that adversity, which I think is, first and foremost, a very transferable skill as you continue to move on with things throughout the rest of your life.
It takes something a little more to lead with impact. I'm Lisa Nichols, author of Something Extra, and this podcast was inspired by our daughter Allie, whose additional chromosome has shaped how I see people in leadership. Each episode features conversations with inspiring leaders from around the world about what truly defines how they lead and serve others. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It helps more people discover the show. And if you'd like to go deeper, my book, Something Extra, is available on Amazon and through other major book retailers. Today we are joined by Matt Lashoff, a former NHL defenseman who successfully bridged the gap between elite athletics and global sports business. Matt is also a musician and has released 2 albums. Today, he serves as a strategic leader with Oakview Group and the founder of Vesta Legacy Group, where he leverages his unique background in artistry and grit to develop world-class sports facilities and legacy-driven business ventures. Matt currently lives in St. Louis with his wife, Kristen, and 3 children. Well, Matt Lashoff, welcome to the Something Extra podcast. I am so delighted that we can make this work today.
No, same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. I love to tell our listeners how I meet my guests. They're always like, how do you meet these people? And I have to just give a shout out to our mutual friends, Matt and Maria Granados.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they're the best. They are the ultra connectors, and obviously, 2 of the most faith-based, amazing people that we have in our lives. We're lucky enough to call them friends, and obviously involved in a lot of different things going on in our lives with them and their families, and so fortunate to call them friends. So and amazing. Obviously, they always do this. They always make Clash of Worlds, which is awesome.
I agree. No, I love them. They are just, I tell people all the time, they're the real deal.
Yeah.
They really are. And so we love you guys. And then Matt, it's really funny because you and I have found other connections. So Jenny Heel, whom you've met, who is I call her my second brain. Everybody needs a second brain. She's like, Lisa, I worked with Matt's wife, Kristen, at Stages. And then we just hired another one of your friends in Technology Partners. So it's so cool, isn't it? How
It is.
people are interrelated and interlaced. It's just, I think it's beautiful, honestly.
It absolutely is. I mean, I think we live in a special community here in St. Louis. And, me being an outsider and coming into it's been a unique experience just to kind of, embed myself in and see like past lives start to clash in me from a sports angle and then outside of it and whatnot. It's been an amazing experience and definitely a special place and special people for sure.
I agree. I mean, Greg and I are originally from Kentucky. We were born and raised in Kentucky and were moved here, recruited here by McDonnell Douglas 42 years ago. And
Mhm.
Matt, it was funny because when we came to St. Louis, we said, "Oh, we'll probably be here for 2 or 3 years and then move somewhere else." And obviously that has not happened because it is. I mean, I think it's just a really welcoming community. But to your point, you did not grow up here.
Mm.
You grew up in East Greenbush, New York.
Yes, I did. Little farm town outside of Albany, upstate New York, nowhere connected to the city. I always have to kind of originate myself when we're talking about where East Greenbush is. But yeah, a little small town, upstate New York. I had an amazing upbringing just outside all the time. It was easy to play hockey up there because it was a lot of snow and a lot of ice and a lot of cold.
Right.
But an amazing environment, very small community, very rural environment. Lots of fun, lots of fun.
Well, I know that your mom and dad were very instrumental. And in fact, we're going to talk about this, but you were an NHL, you were a hockey player, NHL hockey player. We're going to talk more about that. But I loved reading this about you, Matt, that your dad
Mhm.
built an ice rink in the backyard.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. You know what? I'm trying to carry on the same tradition here in St. Louis. It's a little more difficult with the weather, but it was amazing up there. I mean, my parents, were so instrumental just in giving and allowing us to do whatever we wanted. My brother and I've got one other sibling and who was lucky enough to play professional hockey as well. And I think it all originated with exactly what you just mentioned. My dad being crazy enough to throw some water on in the backyard and letting us just go. And we had access to all these different sports. And for some crazy reason, just started to gravitate towards hockey. But yeah, we're trying to carry on the tradition as much as we can here with the weather. But we've got the rink up in the backyard in the wintertime, and it doubles as a sport court, shooting session, yoga studio, basketball court, and everything else in the wintertime or in the summertime. So
That's
it's been fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
But you know what, to your point, and then your dad, and I love this about you, and this is something I did not know. And even like Derek that we just hired, he's like, oh yeah, he's a musician. So I've listened to some of your music. But the cool thing about it is, Matt, your dad was a musician,
Mhm.
and you said that you were around all these instruments all the time. You know what? It just makes me think, though, sometimes imagine if you had not had that access.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other thing too, with just our upbringing and our parents, the way that they taught us and allowed us to grow and expand was we were never really we had access to everything and we were open to everything, but we weren't really gravitated or pushed in any area, right? So it was ours to explore every one of these things. We had a very kind of foundational artistic element in my household, to your point, with my dad being a musician, my mom having a very creative side. The sports was huge as well. And my dad played, baseball at a very high level. My mom was always very athletic as well. They were not hockey people, they were not hockey players. There's no hockey in their background. But we were just in an environment growing up where, like I said, it was very rural. There wasn't much to do. And we had access to, everything from a sporting perspective and an artistic and music perspective. And we were supported very heavily in that nature. Like you said, my dad was a musician. He played in, garage bands and bar bands for a very long time. So I was around that from the beginning, sitting on amplifiers and seedy old bars and watching my dad play late into the night. But it was amazing. It was and it grew to be an awesome outlet for me through my entire life, right? Just from a writing and a creative outlet perspective, and then obviously an outlet away from what ultimately ended up becoming my day job for a little bit, which was professional sports. So yeah, an amazing environment and upbringing just to have access and just to be, allowed to grow in these lanes that we ended up gravitating towards.
Hmm. Well, and we're going to talk about that, but I know you're really involved in the community and mentoring and that sort of thing, Matt. And um, it does make me just thank goodness, more children need access.
Mhm.
It's access, right? Because you don't know what could be unlocked in them if they have the access to, all of these things. But I love that. So, you left home at the age of 14.
Mhm.
Whoa, to pursue hockey. I mean, what kind of things did that do internally for you? I mean, do you think you were mentally and emotionally prepared to leave home at the age of 14?
Absolutely not. No. I think I'm still getting over some of those things, but I'll tell you what, it again, the supportive environment that I was around, I think gives you and gives kids the confidence that anything is allowed and able to be accomplished, which
Mhm.
I had, right? And so I think at the time I do remember it, and we're reliving this right now with my own son who's about to take his journey on to the next stage of hockey around a similar age. And I think the biggest thing that my wife and I have always talked about is, you have to allow them to have the confidence to feel that they can do this. And there's going to be challenges and things are going to be hard, but if the supports cast and the support system is there, then you truly believe that you always have the bedrock to be able to continue to fail forward and to continue to grow. And you've got the resources and the protection there. And that was me. It was not easy, but I
Yeah.
knew my parents and my family and my brother were there. And it allowed and gave me the confidence to even feel I was ready to step into that. The false sense of security that was definitely there, which I think is, that's part of the upbringing, right? It's part of the
Right.
process, which is
Is
great.
this Ryder?
This
Is
is
this
right.
right?
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
Ryder that's getting ready to take his journey? Oh my goodness.
right.
Well, let's talk about this, Matt, because in a similar vein, I can identify. I grew up doing music my whole entire life and, excelling in academics,
Mhm,
right? Talk about this a little bit where performance
mhm.
and what you do sometimes can become your identity. Did you struggle with it at all? Did you struggle at all with this performance? I'm worthy if I perform correctly. I mean, talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's super interesting. I think going through it now as a parent, and seeing it from 50,000 feet, from a little bit
Mhm.
of a different landscape. And, you realize how much you learned. And I joke with a bunch of the players, that I talk to, former teammates and whatnot now. I'm like, if we could only zoom out in the middle of all of this, I think all of the chaos and the stress and some of the pressure that we end up putting on ourselves would, be viewed in a very different light. But to your point, I think any athlete at a certain stage of their growth within that sport reaches a precipice of when your performance is very tied to how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. It's not, or at least it should not be, and I think is a problem in youth sports now today, is it should never touch even remotely close to that when you are growing up and playing these sports. And truly the goal is that it never gets to that level, even when you're playing professional, because and getting paid for it, because then you're playing free and you're playing for the passion of the game, and you're allowing
Mhm.
things to ultimately transpire the way that they need to. But naturally there's different pressures that get put on it, and you're in an environment that is constantly judged from every different angle and in every different way, shape, or form. And those pressures and that stress end up falling on you. And really the most detrimental piece of it, and I think any athlete is ultimately always been there, is predicating your performance on who you are as a person. And I
Yes.
the goal is how fast can you get out of that, and how do you accomplish being able to get to the other side of that, that mountain, if you will. So it's a struggle with every athlete, I would say, and every high performer ultimately, right? Is how do you battle that mentality of what does your performance mean, and how do you ultimately accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah. No, I could not agree more. And to your point, it's not just athletes.
Yeah.
Any high performer, it's like, "Oh, this is who I am." Well, no, this is what you do, but
Right.
it's not necessarily who you are, and, so, I don't think people probably most people don't really understand, like, at your level. I mean, I think you were first round, draft pick by the Boston Bruins, and this is about, what, 2005, 2006,
Yep.
something like that, Matt?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, tell me about that moment. Tell
Mhm.
me about that moment when when you found out that you were drafted. I mean, how did you feel inside?
I mean, it was surreal, for
Surreal.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, I grew up in a very different place than a lot of hockey players do. Not a lot came out of that area, is what I mean by that. We didn't have a whole lot to rationalize what that meant. The only connectivity that I had to professional sports was the TV. And at the time you could only get regional games, and obviously hockey started to get a little bit more national at the time through ESPN and whatnot. But that was all I had to be able to connect to the sport that I was so passionate about. So when you ultimately end up getting to the level of what has been on your wall for the entire time and that has been kind of glorified, um,
Yes.
I had been to one NHL arena up until the point that I was drafted. Like there was no
Wow.
kind of place that I was there other than these things that had kind of brought me there in the very near term from the draft and when I was getting older. But so when it happened, it was very surreal, and I think it took me a little bit to figure out that these guys were just people, just like I was, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Glorification, I think, and like a pedestal that some of it was put on in the beginning because you were like, I had never seen it. And ultimately, then you're there, you're in the same buildings, you're around the same people that you had kind of modeled after. And it's so different now watching my kids go through it. There's so much access, there's so much visibility, there's so much more touch points that all the people in general, not only just players, have to professional athletes. And it was much different.
Mhm.
And I can remember cutting things out of magazines and watching things on VHS tapes and trying as much as I could to watch and get access just because it was a passion of mine. But now it's so different. It's like these guys see people on the street that, play sports or, they look up to, and it's very easy. They're like, hey, how you doing? I feel like I know you already, right? Because of social
Uh-huh.
and all these things, which is an amazing thing. It was very different. So it was a very surreal moment when it all ultimately went down from the draft. And then, ultimately that's where the work starts, right
Yeah,
at the end of the
for
day.
sure. Okay, so listen, you're a first for me to have an NHL player on my podcast. I've had professional baseball players, I've had musicians. I've not had a player, but I have to ask you this, and I know, I mean, I could surmise all sorts of things, but I'd love to hear it from you. What did hockey teach you about discipline and the character that you are even implementing today and what you're doing with Vesta and Oakview? And, you're on an entrepreneurial journey now. I'm thinking, my gosh, Matt, you're like NHL musician. You've got albums out. you're, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, that's really cool. I mean, you're kind of a triple threat. But what did it teach you? Like learning hockey and playing at that level.
You know what? I think that the simplest thing, and this may be the simplest way to put it, is I think you learn through hockey to execute and to continue to move forward when things are at their most inconvenient times.
Mhm.
First and foremost, to learn to skate is one of the most non-rational things anyone can ever do. And when you learn it in the beginning, no matter who you are, you fail immediately. Everyone fails immediately when they start to learn how to skate. So it becomes this mental callus, I believe, that is built at a very young age, which is why I'm such a big proponent of hockey, just in general, for all kids to learn, right? I think there's two things that I always talk about with young kids. It's, play hockey and learn to do it, learn to skate, learn to get on the ice because you build this mental callus, and then do gymnastics because you learn how to move your body. So I tell all these guys, all these kids, these things just in general, because I think it builds the bedrock of your ability to handle and push through adversity and be resilient at a very young age. And you can start it when you're at a later age or whatnot, but that is what you start with from a hockey perspective. And I think our sport, and any sport for that matter, and now kind of transversely what I'm doing now, you learn to live in a comfortable place when things
Mhm.
are at their most chaotic,
Mhm.
because nothing is easy from a sporting perspective in hockey, from a training perspective and or otherwise. And it really kind of sets you up, I think, for or has set me up from a learning development perspective on how to handle adversity at their highest moments and at its highest levels, right? So for me, I think leaving the game and being involved in the game, the short answer is it's taught me everything. I think, how to
Mhm.
live in a locker room, how to be a brother, how to be a father, how to be a teammate, how to be, have somebody's back, all of the things that kind of come with that. But first and foremost, you learn how to handle adversity, and you learn how to be a
Right.
good teammate through that adversity, which I think is,
Mhm.
first and foremost, a very transferable skill as you continue to move on with things throughout the rest of your life.
Exactly. Well, it's resilience.
Yeah.
That's the word that just keeps popping in my mind, because Matt, here's the thing, that old adage that says you're terrible at everything
Mhm.
until you're not.
Right. Right.
I think sometimes people look at people that have accomplished a lot and go, wow, look at that. But you know what I talk about? I talk about the iceberg.
Yeah.
Only
100%.
10% of the iceberg is above the water
Mhm.
level, right?
Mhm.
The other 90%. And so people don't see that piece. But yeah, you're terrible until you're not. I'll tell you a funny story. So I did ballet and dance my whole entire life. Like I started when I was 4 all the way through high school. And we in Kentucky, we did not have where I grew up, we didn't have an ice rink.
Mhm.
But I told you I was very involved in music. And so our choir got invited to, I can't even remember now, but some sort of performance in Chicago.
Mhm.
So our choral director's like, I'm going to take everybody, you guys all ice skating. And it was so funny, Matt, because I had all my friends go, oh my gosh, Lisa's going to be so good because she does ballet and blah, blah, blah. I was the worst person on my ankles were so weak that my, feet turned in. I never did get the hang of ice skating. But everybody kind of it was a lot of pressure because everybody's like, "Oh my gosh,
You're
Lisa's
gonna
gonna
be
be
the best. Yeah.
yeah, she's gonna be so good at it," and I was the worst. It was terrible. But yeah, I agree. Ice skating is hard.
It's hard. Right out of the box. It's hard.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about your music and then kind of get into more like transition and what you're doing today. But you I laughed because you said you and your brother would like skate in this backyard ice rink until it got dark.
Mhm.
Then you would come in and you would start playing the guitar
Yep.
and coming up with riffs and stuff on the guitar. No, really not much television. I mean, you were very intentional at a very young age, Matt, about doing things that were going to move you forward. But I mean, you've recorded 2 albums now. One's called Living on Heart. You know, there is a vulnerability, isn't there, about putting any kind of art out there because, I wrote my first book that came out in September. And I mean, I just know the angst because you're like, what if you
Yeah.
put it out there and people don't like it? I mean, how did that stretch you?
It stretched me quite a bit, and I'll never forget this. It was kind of going through, the early days of my hockey playing career, and music had always been an outlet for me, right? Like we talked about
Mhm.
earlier, my dad was a musician. It was the thing that I could kind of reclude into, and release emotions and whatever it might be with all the rest of the things going on in my life. Um, and I think it's always been something for me that's been able to be that release point, and the element within my life that I've been able to kind of go into. But the fear of actually putting it out there is a totally different thing. And like I said, I'll never forget what one of these guys told me when I was young into my playing career, and he said, "Leave life exhausted. Do everything you possibly can do that pulls you,
Oh,
that you were pulled towards." Right. Um, and I was playing like kind of one of these interview things, playing music that they found out that this was a hidden talent of mine with the Bruins, and they asked if I would do something on what was at the time the Nesson network, and I'm like, oh yeah, like no big deal, like that sounds like fun, completely out of the box, and I was
yeah.
scared to death to do it. But ended up doing it, and it got picked up by a Bruins fan in Los Angeles who was also a music producer. And again, going back to that old adage of leave life exhausted, just kind of go at like see where things go. Um,
Mhm.
I got an opportunity. He said, "Hey, would you want to come out and meet a couple people throughout the music world? And how serious are you about this? Are you passionate about it?" I didn't know how serious it was. What I really loved, and I found out that I really loved writing. I really loved songwriting. It was that
Mhm.
outlet. It was not the performance piece of it. It was not being on stage. It was not getting in front of lights in a different way. It was the songwriting element of it, the storytelling, the connective tissue to what was going on in my brain, which at the time, most of the times, it's pretty much a big pile of spaghetti. So that was my way to get it out there, right? Uh,
Right.
And honestly, it's the journey kind of started from there, and amazing things happened, from a person perspective and a networking standpoint. And I've met some of the most amazing people in my life from a music standpoint by just saying yes and just falling forward with it. I'm not the greatest musician of all time. I'm not the greatest songwriter of all time. I love it. I feel like I can connect with people through it at times when the stars align. But I was able to go in and meet some of the most amazing musicians that we've all listened to on records and songs and albums throughout the history of music, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But also meet those same people that they were kind of teaching me lessons in their world and what they had gone through from a music standpoint, to be able to transfer that into what I was doing on a day-to-day basis from a hockey standpoint. So
Mm-hmm.
it was an amazing environment to be in and to grow in. So what I would do, I would play hockey during the season, and then I would write songs in the summer, and I'd go to Nashville and I would sit in the songwriting room on Music Row and meet with artists and meet with songwriters, and then train in between that, and then I would go back for the hockey season. So it was a pretty wild existence for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I still talk to most of those people today. They're great friends, and it's an amazing industry.
Yeah. Okay. So here's some things that I'm thinking as you're talking. The first thing is you've said that you were scared at first. You did it scared.
Yeah,
Sometimes you do it scared. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the overcoming of that fear, right?
right.
So do it scared. And then another thing that you said, Matt, that I just love, and I found it true in my own life, is the power of yes.
Yeah.
The power of yes. I mean, because I know, and I've got stories where we've said yes to things. And if we had not said yes to those things, we would not have met the
Mhm.
amazing people that we have met. We wouldn't have had the experiences. Now you have to, I'm going to balance that with this caveat. You got to protect your yes.
Mhm.
You got to protect it, but don't not do something just because it feels uncomfortable or you're scared of it.
100%. I think one of the biggest things that people in general, and I've been in this stage a million times over. We all are, and I think there's always a constant reminder that's necessary. Is we always feel the need or the necessity to feel like we need to be completely ready, completely confident, or completely clear in what the next thing is before we say yes, before we take the chance. To your point, I love what you said just about protecting your yes, because I think you have to, make sure that environment and those things are feeding what you feel is most important, and that you're being called to that thing.
Yeah.
And that's important, not to just run around and say yes to every meeting and say yes to everything.
Yes.
You have to feel the draw and feel the movement towards it. And that's the other thing, right? I think, movement is an amazing thing when you can feel that it's rooted in for me, like your faith to be able to
Okay.
move you towards that and feel confident enough to do it. But always reminding yourself that it's a good thing sometimes to not have it all figured out and not think through all the things, and failing forward is a very courageous and a very movement oriented thing to be able to drive you to the next stage in your development or your life or
Yes.
world. So
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, I just think about when Greg and I started Technology Partners, we didn't have this multi-million-dollar strategy.
right.
I
Exactly.
mean, seriously, we didn't, Matt. We're just like, okay, we're just going to take one step at a
Move.
time here, and boy, and we've failed, but to your point, failing forward and learning from that, right, is what's really important. Well, gosh, I've got so many more questions, Matt, but we do need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on the Something Extra podcast with Matt Lashoff.
Hey there. In a challenging business climate like this, savvy leaders look to technology to find an edge. This can mean the difference between staying ahead of the curve or playing catch-up. It's time to collaborate with the highly skilled experts at Technology Partners. Our team of technologists draws upon decades of experience for your project, with each bringing a passion for solving problems and a track record of success. How can we help you overcome your biggest technology challenges? Visit technologypartners.net to book a free consultation with one of our leaders.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with Matt Lashoff. Oh my goodness, I have been enjoying this conversation so much, Matt. So much good wisdom here. But I'd love for you to tell our listeners, what are you doing today? So you're now an entrepreneur. I mean, tell me about Vesta. Tell me about Oakview. What are those? What's your mission?
No, it's great. I appreciate it, and thank you. The at the end of the day, I think a lot of the things we've talked about, have led to these two kind of next stages in my life, like not being
Mhm.
ready and taking a leap of faith and trying to figure out what that next phase was. And what I've realized is that what I am most passionate about is helping people kind of in that transition, in that difficult time period, probably because it was so difficult and hard for myself
Right.
through it. But I ended up, when I retired, I decided that I wanted to try to find the perfect match of a career. I had had a journeyman's life in sports at the end of my playing days and was overseas. I played in Switzerland, Sweden, Russia, Germany. My kids could hardly speak English at the time. When we were coming back, because we were all over the place, my body was broken down. My wife had put a career on hold. And the days of my pinnacle were over, and we needed to make a decision both for our family and also the very few people in sports get to make the decision on when they're ultimately done with playing.
Mhm.
And the next phase of my life was upon itself, and it's a very arduous and difficult environment to be in. You've done the same thing essentially from when you were 5 years old till when I was 32, 33 years old. My life hadn't changed a whole lot. I played sports, I played with my buddies, I hung out, and I played guitar. Right, it was a pretty good existence for a long time. And the what I really knew and really wanted to expand was a different mountain. I knew that I wanted to go on and try to traverse and try to get involved in a different life, in a different mountain, but tangential to what I was still doing from a sports perspective. And for me, that was business. I wanted to be involved in business and be involved and close to the sport that I love so much, which was hockey. And luckily enough, had an opportunity to join a startup at the time called the Oakview Group, which is a venue development and operations company that builds arenas, stadiums, amphitheaters all over the country, and works very, very closely hand in hand with sports franchises around the world. So the first project I was able to work on was Climate Pledge Arena, and the founding of the Seattle Kraken NHL hockey team, the 32nd franchise. So it was a pretty cool thing to
Wow.
land in. But again, it was an opportunity that was built on complete faith and blind faith in that manner, right? Where it was a startup company that was founded by a couple of the presidents of teams that I had been a part of. I asked if I could work for free because I had no transferable or I had no skills in that environment. I just wanted to learn, right? And they were crazy enough to take a chance on me at the time, and it was the best thing that I had ever done, from a work and perspective, and it was the first thing I've ever done after playing. And one of the things that did for me was create an environment of different opportunities. The sports world is such an amazing ecosystem of different humans, of different people, of different industries, of different opportunities, and the players that I had played with had consistently began to start reaching out as I was also helping the Players Association of Hockey, help develop this kind of next stage, this transition element that would help the players go to the next stage of their careers when they were done and when they were ready to retire. So a lot of players were reaching out trying to get connected and learn about what was next and learn about different options and opportunities on it. And I realized that was a huge passion of mine, was to help the player out, help with the transition. And essentially that was the start of Vesta Legacy Group and what we're doing now. It was born out of the environment of being, integrated into the sports space. But really from an altruistic standpoint was to how do we help both athletes and and business owners now as well, find out what that next phase is and get connected with business opportunities that they're passionate about, that they're
Hmm.
driven for. It's such a hard place to be in when your name is in the newspaper a lot. People think they have access to you. One, people think that you're ready and want to do other things, or they can take advantage of you for those things. So we've tried to build a very, holistic environment where people, and athletes, entertainers, and executives can come in a safe space and help one be connected to companies that they love, and they can help grow, while also finding an opportunity on what their next stage might potentially be. So it's been an amazing growth journey. To your point, from an entrepreneurial perspective, I'm learning those ropes every single day, which is
Yep.
exciting. But again, I think falling back to what your passion is and your purpose is, for us, it's trying to pay it forward and help these players out, and people in a very similar situation that I was, not try to go through the same stuff that was, so difficult at the time.
Yeah. Well, man, I just love that because, when we're looking here, we see all the different dots. We don't really see the beautiful picture.
Right.
But I think, God just really, I mean, he's prepared you for where you are today, right? If you had not gone through what you went through, there's no way that you would really be equipped to help others, right? So I think I love that. I love that you're doing that. Well, let me ask you this. What do you, I mean, now you've been doing this. How do you think about leadership?
Mhm.
How would you even describe leadership? Do you have like a way that you describe leadership? I mean, what is a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And I've been fortunate enough to be around so many amazing leaders from a sports perspective and from a business standpoint. When I've been done, and you think about the kind of the ecosystem of all these different things that kind of coalesce in sports. So I've been very, very lucky to be on the front end of a lot of that, and what I've tried to do is take a little bit of each one of those
Mhm.
teammates that I've had, those coaches that I've had, the executives I've been around, and try to blend it into what I feel is the best form of leadership. But I think the one thing is it's always evolving and it's always growing, and we're always learning about how we can add different skills and different things into that environment. But I think for me, it boils down to the simplicity almost that we talked about earlier, and it's that resilience. It's the discipline to wake up and do things, when you don't always want to do them.
Right.
It's putting that step in front of you itself, one after the other, and continuing to move forward in the things that need to be done, not the things that want to be done. um,
Yes.
and I think if you can do that from a consistent basis, whether it's hockey and you're waking up and you're getting the reps in, and you're watching the video and you're talking to the other teammates and you're learning about what the other teams are doing, or it's business and you're scouting on what your competitors are doing, you're teaching your employees, you're being a supportive individual that's there, you're getting the grunt work done. If you can continue to move forward one by one, not only are you going to always be the person that can be looked at that's moving the boat forward. One of the things that we've always said in the locker room, it's like, if you're going to ask other people to do it, you better be doing it yourself, right? And you better be doing it at the highest level you
Absolutely.
can. That's a huge piece
Absolutely.
of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, I mean, I just think whether it's playing hockey and you've got other teams, you've got fans, right? In business, you've got customers, you've got employees. I always say we're just stewards.
Hmm.
Really, we're stewards of that, and we just want to be the best steward of whatever resources are given to us, right? So, I love that. Um, well, you are so big on I want you to talk about this because my girls, Paige and Allie own Kindred Spirits Designs,
Yeah.
and you guys and they were there for Skating Under the Stars, the Skating Under the Stars event that you guys put on. Tell me about that
Yeah.
event.
It's it's been an amazing journey with that. My wife, who is, to your point, my second brain, most of the time my first brain too. Is, obviously the most amazing champion that we have in our house. I mean, she is the real leader, I feel like, underneath our roof for everybody that we have, not only our family, but otherwise. We went through a situation with our youngest, Caden. He was diagnosed with a rare disease, and my wife, Kristen, always the advocate and always the one moving forward and trying to help and bring people together. Decided to create an event called Skate Under the Stars, where it brought together all other individuals who had rare disease and gave them access to hockey, gave them access to be on the
Yeah.
ice when normally you can't. Obviously, like we talked about earlier, hockey and skating in general is hard right off the bat. But it's also hard from an access point. It's very expensive. There's a lot of people on the ice. Pucks are flying around. So there's never really a safe environment for even people to go out and feel what is essentially that freedom for me and what I had being out on the ice, just being skating, and just being able to kind of go out and have fun. So what we've created, or what she created, and I end up just supporting on at this point, is an amazing opportunity for kids and adults, for that matter, to come out and enjoy hockey and skating in a safe place.
Hmm.
It's been amazing, the growth that it's had. We get support from the National Hockey League and the St. Louis Blues, all the AAA programs that are around here. I think it's been one of the most fulfilling things that we've been able to see grow, not only because of what it means and what it's supporting and what's behind the scenes, but I think the joy that you're seeing in the kids' faces to be able to go
Hmm.
out, and I think also the joy you've begun to see in the people that are helping support it, because of that joy that it's bringing the kids on the ice, has been a really, really fulfilling and amazing experience. I cannot believe what it's come and grown into today. Each year we go back, I'm just blown away by the support of everyone involved. So it's been an amazing experience to be involved with. And I think, to your point, you said it best, right? The idea and the fulfillment of the event itself was Kristen's, and a little bit mine at a certain extent. But it's now we are stewards of this environment, and we're stewards of what this is, and it's become its own thing, which is very, very
Yes.
easy.
That's so beautiful, man. And as you're describing that, I really didn't know how it started exactly, but I just know my girls really enjoyed being there with you guys. It's a seed.
Hmm.
We plant a seed, and first of all, you saw a gap.
Hmm. Yeah.
A gap, right? And that's how many things start. You see the gap in the ecosystem and you're like, okay. And especially if your heart is drawn toward that, just planting a seed and watching it grow is just a really beautiful thing. And you've got to continue to water that seed, but that's just I love it. And you talking about the joy on the kids' faces and getting to see them do that.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's priceless. That's
Yes.
priceless. You can't put a price tag on that, really. So, I
100%.
love that. I love that. Well, let's talk real quick about your faith, and then I have just a few little lightning round, and then we're gonna talk about something extra. Um, I know faith is really important to you and Kristen. Tell
Hmm.
me how it shows up in your everyday life. I mean, with your business, Matt, what you're trying to do there, in your family, how you parent. How important has it been?
Yeah, you know what? It's everything. I think we've had our own faith journey. My family has always been rooted in its faith, since the beginning. I think it's always been the thing that I had turned to. We've talked about kind of different outlets, right, in music and all the other things that are there, but there's one thing that I think roots consistently in it, and it's our belief in Jesus and our faith in general to be able to turn to for us, as a family and as a unit. I think as you look from a parenting perspective, just from a stewardship landscape, always being able to turn back to the word and being able to think through, how are we being stewards of the Lord, and how are we moving the the word forward within our business, within how
Mhm.
we're teaching our kids, has really been the bedrock of how we're continuing to move forward. Like I would be lying to you if I said that that didn't get challenged at times, especially from when I was, leaving hockey and, felt like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? This is all rosy and easy. And I turn and I open the book up and it's given me the things that I need. It was hard, right? It was hard, but I
Yes.
always kind of rerouted back to that, and consistently gone back. And the one thing that I, was a lightning rod kind of in my head that kept, showing up in in dreams and waking up was Matthew 13, pick the seeds up and let them grow, right? As we kind of
Mm.
think through what we're actually trying to do, not allowing the different distractions of the world to pick things up and to pull you away from, what is the most important piece. And I think as we show and try to lead for our kids and lead for, the people within the business, and lead for the players that are coming in, everyone's got their different walk that they're on, but for us, I think just being able to be true to, what and how we're moving forward in this world and being good stewards of the Lord and his word, I think has been, one, the most amazing joy that we've been able to kind of show to our kids and the other people coming through it, through the business and whatnot, but also continuing to move forward and the growth and the learnings that we're trying to do every day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Matt, life is not easy.
Oh.
It's not all unicorns and rainbows, right? I mean, there's hard seasons, and whatever it is, I tell people, find an anchor for your soul because
Yeah.
your ship is gonna be tossed to and fro.
Hmm.
What is that constant in your life? And I mean, it may be something different for someone else. But I know for me, I know for you, even through those hard times, I mean, God has never, ever failed me.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't always look the way that I think it should look, right? But that's okay
Right.
because He's God and I'm not.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, He has never failed me yet, and it's constant. He doesn't change,
Mhm.
which, everything else in the world seems sometimes like shifting sand. But
100%. I think you nailed it too, right? Just being open to the acceptance of the forms that it's coming in, right? I think that's the
yes.
biggest thing. And, as you talk through leadership and you talk through, the faith journey, of just what is next, to exactly what you said, the biggest piece is being open to accepting it. And exactly like you mentioned, it doesn't always come in the ways that you were expecting or thinking that it's going to come. So that's why you got to stay open for it to be ready.
Exactly. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that. Well, I'm gonna skip my
Yeah.
lightning rod questions. I may ask you, I wanted to talk about habits and like daily routines and all that, but we're
Yeah.
running out of time. This is called something extra.
Mhm.
So, man, I ask every guest, what do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs? What would you say it is?
I think we've talked about it a lot. For me, it's the resilience. It's building.
Resilience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's. I think it is. I think resilience can get wrapped up in a lot of different things, right? Your faith, discipline, all of the things that you're leaning back on, to what is next. But again, I think as we talked about it before, um, just being able to wake up and do the things that need to be done and not that want to be done, I think is the most important thing from a leadership perspective, that anybody can have. And it's the one thing that you can control. The one thing you can control is going up and doing the things that need to be done, not what everyone is saying, not what other people are doing, not what people are talking about. And I think, that's the one thing that sports shows you in spades. There's a lot of noise.
Mm.
A lot of things being talked about, and you have to do a really good job. And if you see the best teams and the best environments out there, they do a very good job protecting that environment and keeping that environment a very positive, growth oriented one, where everyone in that room, and for me at the time it was a locker room, and for other people it's a boardroom, feels supported in what they're trying to accomplish. We're all trying to win, or we're all trying to get to the next stage, but we need everyone to kind of do their job, if you will, and pull them along.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
you
That's
know,
good.
and that resilience piece is a huge part of it, right? Because things aren't, to what you mentioned earlier, they're not going to be, rainbows and sunshine all the time. And
Right.
you have the purpose and the drive to go forward. You're going to have the discipline and the resilience to get up and wake up and do the things that need to be done for, your mission that has to align with the greater mission of what we're all trying to accomplish within the room. So,
Yeah.
I think when in doubt, it's, we always tell the kids, hard things are coming, no matter whether you like it or not. Hard things.
Right.
What are you going to do when things get hard? And you have
Yeah.
to have the tools, the resources, and ultimately what it boils down to, the resilience, to continue to wake up and show up, more importantly, and move to the next step.
So good. So good. So wise, Matt. Hey, listen, thanks so much for making the time. This has been so much fun. And I know that this is going to help our listeners. So I just appreciate you spending this time with me and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, there's a lot of catchphrases that I'm going to take away from you. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc. 2019. To learn more about this week's guest, check out the show notes at tpi.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving us a review. Thank you for listening to Something Extra.